Hello from Minneapolis. I'm Alexis McAdams. I've been on the ground here covering everything that's going on here in the city and the state. It's pretty much at the center of the political and breaking news universe. We've had a lot going on. We started here on the ground talking about this massive fraud investigation that happened here, and then we quickly transferred to another huge story, probably the biggest story happening right now across the country, this ICE-involved shooting. An ICE agent shoots and kills a woman. DHS tells Fox News that they say the agent was acting in self-defense. If you ask local people, including local protesters, the mayor of Minneapolis, Jacob Frey, you ask the governor, Tim Walz, they say that they're still looking into it, but they believe that the narrative by DHS that this was self-defense is, quote, BS. The mayor of Minneapolis, who you might remember, you might know him, his name is Jacob Frey. You might remember him because of 2020. What happened here in 2020, hard to forget. Everything that happened with George Floyd, the riots, the chaos. Places that we are right now in Minneapolis are still burned down and destroyed, and we're 6 years and counting since that all happened. So he told protesters to try to act as peacefully as possible, not because of any other reason than he doesn't want the feds to have a reason to send in more federal agents here. So he said, please don't destroy too much because then President Trump's just going to surge resources. But he also told ICE to get the F out. He did say F of Minneapolis. He said that they're causing more harm than good here in the city, and he doesn't feel like they're making anything any safer. So it depends on what video clip you look at. If you're some of the local officials like the mayor, Jacob Frey, or Governor Tim Walz, they say this was unjustified, okay? They say that this woman who was in her car, Renee Good, that she was just trying to pull away. But DHS tells us that she was a protester who's an anti-immigration protester who had been driving around the city of Minneapolis all morning following their agents around, and they say she ran into one of those agents with her car when they told her to get out of the way because she was using her vehicle, according to the feds, to block an ongoing ICE operation. And going back, when we cover these things all over the place, whether they end in a fatal shooting, which is terrible or not, it just goes back to the fact that whether you like ICE or not, whether you support law enforcement, whether you support the White House, you can't impede an ongoing investigation. You can't jump on the hood of a car like we've seen at these protests of a federal agent. You can't hit them, you can't spit at them, and if they tell you to get out of the car or they tell you to move, you have to abide by the rules and the law. So that's what kind of comes back to for the federal immigration authorities. They're like, we've told you guys to listen to us, whether you like it or not. We're going after who they say are the worst of the worst, or people who are in this country illegally. They're trying to remove them, and then they have these protesters blocking those ongoing operations. And it's not just in Minnesota, it's across the country. Going back to this woman and kind of what we know about her. So she's 37 years old, and her name, just want to make sure it's all right. I've been up all morning, so I want to make sure all my stuff is right. But anyway, so she's 37 years old, and she was out here, according to the feds, blocking off those areas. And I'm just going to show you, too, where we are in terms of downtown Minneapolis. I'm just going to step off just for a second. But this is just the area where nothing is happening in this area right now. But it has been throughout. Like there's a building not far from here that they were actually trying to break into, some of the protesters after all of this happened. And this woman, though, was part of this ICE watch group in Minneapolis. So her name is Renee Good. You might have seen her picture by now, too. But sources are telling us she was part of an activist group. That means she was trained, that she knew how to impede law enforcement, impede investigations. The group is called ICE Watch. And the White House wants to know if this person was trained, if she was trained by who. So there's a lot of unanswered questions here. And then I'm here with a producer. Is there any questions? She's going to let me know because we have this live stream where I can't see you, but you can see us. And we want to know what questions you have here because it's a huge story in Minnesota. So here's one.
Has it been revealed what led up to Renee moving her car to block ICE?
Say it again.
Has it been revealed what led up to Renee moving her car to block ICE?
So all the federal authorities have told us right now, and the FBI, it's important to point out that there are a lot of unanswered questions. They're supposedly going to be answered by the feds. That's who's leading this investigation. So the FBI took charge of this ICE-involved shooting that left Renee Good dead. And why she had her car parked like that, according to officials, is because she was trying to block an ICE operation. So in some of these situations, what they do, and I've been on ICE ride-alongs in the past, but what some of these people do who don't support ICE, or they want these people out of their communities because they say they're kidnapping their neighbors or whatever, they try to use their vehicle to block the street. So they'll park, and try to block it off. So then these ICE agents are like, okay, we're just going to go around you. And in this situation, some of them did go around her. And then when they told her to get out of the car because they said that she had been following them around all morning, impeding their investigation, one of the agents puts their hand on the car to open the door. The door was locked, and then she puts it into reverse, according to the feds, tries to back up a little bit before she shifts into drive, and according to officials within the administration, she hit an ICE agent. So, the question of how badly was he injured, they say he went to the hospital. They weren't life-threatening injuries, but this is the second time, according to officials, he was even hit in the first place. I guess back months ago in Minnesota, he was hit by a car and had to get stitches. And so these agents are on edge, according to the feds, and they don't feel like they should be having to, get run over by cars or hit by cars for doing their job. That's question one. The question is, was Renee's wife involved in the activist group too? So it's all under investigation. When we say activist group, it's like a loose term. It's could be like a Facebook group, whatever. I mean, these people are told on a group chat, however they communicate, to show up to these different locations to take action against ICE. So was Renee's wife involved too? They were there together. One was in the car driving, Renee Good, and her wife, who hasn't been identified by Fox, at least in terms of a name, she was filming. And in some of the clips that we've seen from the scene, and there's so many angles, there's so many clips, that's the thing with the internet, right? I mean, it's like you have a phone, you've seen a million things by now about what happened here in Minneapolis. The thing with that is that they told her to get out of the car, but they also were having conversations with this woman's wife, Renee Good's wife, where she was videotaping them and, yelling things at those ICE agents. And I guess she had been with her wife at another location. So I think there's just a lot of questions on how they were trained and what's going to happen next in Minneapolis. Question 3.
How are local people reacting? Are they siding with Prey?
Question is, how are locals in Minneapolis reacting? Are they siding with the Minneapolis mayor, the Minneapolis mayor, and the Minnesota governor, which we'll get to in a second. So the Minneapolis mayor, are they siding with him? Well, he told ICE to get the F out of his city. So some people side with him. That would be some of the protesters that I've talked to who said right away, before they even watched the video clips or heard really any information, that the ICE agent was a murderer and should be taken out of here and he should go to jail and be prosecuted. So some people might agree with him. I think some people also that I've talked to are still on edge in Minneapolis after so many things have happened here in this city and in this state of Minnesota. They don't want to see unrest, and so I think they'd rather wait for the facts to come out, and then you can make your mind up. Make your mind up. If you have questions, ask the questions. But I think a lot of people here who own property here, who own businesses here, are like, please don't destroy it. Let's wait to hear what they have to say. But there have been a lot of protests. We were at the Federal Building yesterday, and I had it up on my live stream on my Instagram, and I was just zooming in and showing the people and what they were saying. I was just letting the people on my feed listen, and they were yelling horrible profanities at the agents, telling them they hope they died. They were terrible. A bunch of stuff about their appearance and all these things. And then the agents just have to sit there, and they take action only when the protesters were spitting on them, which they did, crossing over the protest line to try to get too close to the Federal Building, or other issues. So that's kind of what's happening on the ground. And that was our 3 questions about what's going on in Minneapolis. But we'll keep you posted. We're expecting more protests throughout the weekend. It's Friday night. I will say, though, it is cold. It is very cold here. Will that impact protests? I mean, yesterday it was, I guess, a little warmer. I guess warmer is above freezing in Minnesota. And people were out there at the Federal Building. We know there are some protests scheduled for tonight in other areas, more so near the scene where this all happened. So the governor today had said, Governor Tim Walz, who's at the center of a huge fraud investigation on top of this, he said that everybody should take a moment of silence for Renee Good, and that, they are going to pray for her and her family, and that she was a great woman. And, people are sending prayers to her family too. I mean, someone lost a life in this terrible tragedy that happened out here. The question is exactly what happened. Was the agent hit? DHS says yes. Protesters say no way. So you're going to have to look at the videos. You're going to have to see what the feds put up and make, your mind up yourself. And that's why it's so important to come on the ground and talk to people, because you guys are the ones, the story impacts all these people here in Minnesota. So. And then tell them wrap. What did we see in the protests yesterday? We saw people, taking kind of different objects. People threw things at some of the officers. The spitting thing was kind of wild because we were standing there. I was videotaping with my phone, and you could hear and see the guy spit on the agent. And then they kind of all looked at each other like, did he just spit on me? And then that guy was taken into custody. I mean, it's just like, hey, again, whether you agree with federal law enforcement or not, or you support them or not, you can't, be doing these things. And we've seen it happen at so many protests. So thanks for tuning in. Stay with our coverage on Fox News Channel and on Fox Digital. Thanks for watching.